So what you're really asking here is, how do I become conscious of the ways that I'm behaving? What triggers those behaviours, and how can I override them? So when you're attempting something, all of the memory of who you are and the environmental cues and your friendship groups will pull you back into the version you used to be. But you've got to find in your life where your beliefs, behaviours, upbringing, training, identity, culture, conditioning is in contrast with the result that you want. So after a recent video where I showed you how to find the subconscious block that is right under your nose and holding you back, I'll link it around the video. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. People started asking me, all right, I found it, now what? How do I change the subconscious block, let it go and move on? And what I don't think people realise is they're not really asking how to change a subconscious block. This is the most controversial, difficult thing to understand about this. You're actually asking, how do I change who I am? In this video, we're going to unpack that, and I'm going to share with you 3 very specific things you need to do to change who you are, or put another way, change your subconscious programming. Are you ready for this one? Let's go. There are 2 versions of I am. There's the deep, spiritual, energetic, purpose-driven, expansive version of you. That version, absolutely fine, leave well alone. But that version came to Earth, got wrapped up in a human body, and then got conditioned to behave in a certain way. That certain way being what was appropriate for your family, what was appropriate for your culture, what was appropriate for the environment around you. There are 2 versions of who you are. There's the deep down version, you know what is right, you know what is true, and you know who you are, and you know what you were put on this planet to do. That's your purpose. If you're like, Lisa, I actually don't, please don't make assumptions. I will link a video below on how to uncover your purpose. I love this stuff. But most people, if pushed or asked questions by somebody who gets it, they will be able to admit the truth of who they are and what it is they really want. Then the second version of you, it isn't the truth of who you are. It's an act, it's a behaviour, it's a conditioned response. Basically, if I put you in a room full of your friends and you put on your favourite movie and you do your favourite stuff, you are going to behave a certain way, correct? If I put you in a work environment, like a work do or a work event, you are going to behave a different way. Correct? For most people at this stage, there's 2 versions of who they are and how they behave. Conceptually, that means you understand you are acting, you're a performer. You're acting in a way that you know is conducive to you being well received, promoted, pay rise, whatever it is you want. It's an act either way. So what you're really asking here is, how do I become conscious of the ways that I'm behaving? What triggers those behaviours, and how can I override them so that I'm not just responding to a scenario, environment, situation. I'm actually owning what I was put on this planet to do, figuring out what that version of me needs to be, and then adapting my performance to get the result. And already you might be feeling a strong reaction to what I'm saying, but just bear with me because it's really important that we understand this. When I say performance, you have to perform like the person you want to be. In my membership I say, be the person who does the thing and you can have anything you want. The big point I'm trying to make is that the result that you want in your life is beyond you right now. You can't have it because you're thinking a certain way, behaving a certain way, and you believe a certain set of beliefs, and they are keeping you away from that result. What people want to do is stay the same and have the result, and you can't do that. In order to get a result you've never had, you have to change. And that is very painful for humans because it means giving up an identity that you've been so used to, that might have kept you safe, that is appropriate for your current environment, friendship groups, colleagues, and it means taking a risk and becoming a different version of yourself. Just take a second to take that in. That's what we're talking about here. It isn't just saying, I am rich, I am wealthy, I am worthy. That isn't enough. You can't just say that and expect your life to change. It isn't just about the words that you use and how you try and reprogram your subconscious. It's about you becoming a different version of yourself, a version of yourself that aligns with the life that you want. If you can accept that, and there is something you want that has just been outside of your reach for a little while now, by a little while I mean half a decade, most likely, this is what you have to do. It's taken me a while to distill this. I'm distilling it down into 3 key things you have to do. Number 1, you've got to reprogram your subconscious mind. Number 2, you've got to increase your capacity for handling more work, more stress, more boredom. We'll come back to all of these. And number 3, there's healing work to do, and I find this one the hardest. Let's break them down one by one. In order to reprogram your mind, let's get the obvious one out of the way first. You start speaking to yourself in a better way. I'm literally not going to go into this for more than 30 seconds because you'll have read this, seen this, done it. If you keep saying to yourself, I'm not worthy, I can't do it, it's not fair, correct, 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 you get what you say. The first thing, most basic, is to literally start talking to yourself in a different way. That doesn't mean pretending like I am rich when you're not, because that can trigger a fraudulent feeling within yourself and that's not what you want. Instead you say, I am working on becoming rich. I am working on healing my addiction to cigarettes or alcohol. I am open to the ways I might be able to grow around this topic. So the first thing is change your language. And honestly, it is so done on the internet, I'm not even going to go into it. The second thing is to be able to observe your reactions to certain situations. So I'm going to just make this very clear for you. Imagine a kid that is fed vegetables, they're fed broccoli and they don't like broccoli. For one child, the parent says, oh, you don't like broccoli? No worries, let me get you another type of vegetable and you can eat that instead. They say to the child, oh, it's all right if you don't like it. Tell me something you do like. Oh, okay, you like peas, great. If I make you peas, will you eat peas? Brilliant. You make the peas, you eat the peas. Anyone have that experience in childhood? I didn't have that experience. When we were growing up, we didn't even say we didn't like anything because there was no choice. And not in a bad way, you just ate your lasagna, you ate your shepherd's pie, you ate your mash and veg, whatever you were given. So for another child, they might say, I don't like broccoli, and a severe reaction would be, oh, you don't like it? Tough, eat it, or you get nothing. Or, classic even today, if you don't eat your vegetables, you're not getting dessert. Have you heard that? Does it sound familiar? It's a classic, right? What a parent teaches you in that moment is do as they say or you will be punished. Your preferences don't matter in this scenario. If we extrapolate that out over a decade of being conditioned to go against your personal preferences to please somebody else or avoid a severe punishment or get a reward, like eat this, punish yourself, and then you'll be able to get dessert because the dessert is such an intoxicating, dreamy, desiry goal. What you are doing over and over and over every mealtime, which is a very kind of brain-rich reward activity, you're saying to yourself, your opinions don't matter. Don't have an opinion, you get what you're given, don't ask for something different. Now imagine as an adult, you are in a situation you don't like, you're in a job you don't like, you're in a relationship you don't like. Do you go, hang on, growing up I remember that I have an opinion and my opinion matters and I get to make a different choice, think I'm going to make a move? Or do you think, my opinion doesn't really matter, I have to take what I've been given, this is the best life can be, I need to be more grateful for what I've got, and you just stay? Or you rock the boat and you're punished, you're afraid of what's going to happen if you have that difficult conversation or express a dislike. This is how groups are formed and identities in groups are formed. It's a little bit more complex than that, but bottom line, a group is a collective of people who share the same beliefs and the same ideas. And guess what? If I'm in a parenting group and everyone in that group thinks it's appropriate to say to their child, if you don't eat your vegetables, there will be no dessert, then I will think that's appropriate too. And that's what makes us a group. We bond as a group. For me to speak up and say, I disagree with that actually, for my child, I say, what do you want? I cook them what they want, and that's the way life goes. I don't think it's fair that you're doing that to your kids. What's going to happen? Is the whole group going to go, wow, you're so insightful, I think you're right, let's all change? Or does the group go, did you hear what such and such was saying about meal times and how we're getting it wrong? And what happens is that group starts talking about this individual and they're pushed out. And our biggest fear as human beings is to be out in the cold, to be out on our own. It goes against everything in our survival handbook, doesn't it? We want to be part of that tribe. So in order to reprogram your mind, you've got to accept that there were situations when you were growing up where something happened and you were taught a response. When this happens, behave this way. If an adult asks you to do something, here's how you behave. When you feel uncomfortable, here's how you behave. You have that belief programmed into you. So what you've got to realize is when you're out in the world, you are going from situation to situation to situation. And every time you're in a situation, you do not consciously go, hang on, let me check in with my heart and see what I believe. Can you just give me some time to think about it and I'll come back and give you an answer and then come back and share the truth? That isn't what happens because we don't realise that we can do that. But two, it would take far too much brain processing power. This is why our subconscious mind exists. It runs programming that we already have to save brain space, computer space, if you will. So in a situation, your subconscious mind goes, right, quick. and it runs through all of the scenarios in the past where this happened and what the appropriate behaviour was, and it serves it up. So for you to go against that, what you are doing is consciously saying, this is what happened in the past, this is how I know I'm expected to behave, this is what I normally do, but actually I want a different result, so consciously I'm going to try a different behaviour. You change when the same situation happens and your response changes. I think reprogramming your subconscious mind isn't about just affirming who you want to become and kind of downloading it. It's a huge part of it, but it's not it. I think you change your subconscious program when you're in a situation, you're seeing the situation for what it is, you're checking in with the truth of who you are, that deeper, more soulful, more purposeful, expansive spirit version of who you are. You think about your goals, like as if, think how hard this is to do. You think about your goals, you weigh up the options and you say, I normally behave this way, I'm going to behave this way, and then crucially, you can stand the pain of that change. You can stand the pain of the change. The pain is going to feel like severe discomfort, faster breathing, a threat to yourself, exhaustion, a feeling of procrastination, because all of a sudden, I'm afraid, I'm taking an action that goes against the grain, that goes against the group culture, that goes against my identity. You know, when someone goes, you've changed, and it's almost like a threat, it's like a horrible thing to say. If someone says to me, you've changed, I say, thank you. I've been working really hard to do that. So here's the homework. If you want a different result, here's what you've got to do. Reconnect with the true honest goal in your life, the one that you keep putting aside, you keep forgetting about because it's been a long time, you don't think you can do it and you're not getting support. Reconnect with that. Then ask yourself, what are the 10 specific steps between me and that goal? Whenever I do this exercise, I realise I probably know the first 4 or 5 steps between me and the person I want to be, and I don't know 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Haven't come across it, I'm just not aware of it, just didn't know. So I have to actually do some research by studying people. This is where people like Tony Robbins say, success leaves clues, go model people with the result. What they're saying is through pain, study, conflict, trial and error, they found the path. Don't guess, ask them, read their books, listen to their podcast. They will tell you the fastest route through to where you're trying to go. Write them down. And then crucially 2 things. Number 1, identify where it's going to be a shift for you in thought process, in behaviour, in habit. Most of that list is beyond you, of course it is. If you could do it, you would be doing it and you'd have the result and you'd be trying to grow in a different area. So look at it and say, how is this different to the way I think? How is this different to the way I behave? How is this different to what I believe? If I say to you, earning 100k in a year is normal and cool and totally acceptable, you're going to go, yeah Lisa, I totally agree, I believe that too, and I'm working towards it. Or you're going to say, and maybe even just feel, oh, yeah, that sounds cool, Lisa, and I would love it, but it just feels funny to me, and like, isn't that greedy, and are we allowed, and what about these people? Because what's happening is everything you were taught to believe and all of the programming you've got is being triggered. But if, and this is just an example, if your goal is to make 100k in a year, you can't look at someone who has 100k and then listen to their belief, which is, it is normal, it's cool, it's fun, this is totally acceptable, and then say, I don't believe that. I'm going to keep my belief, which is people with money are greedy. It's not fair. Nobody needs that amount of money. This is a really obvious, overt example, but you've got to find in your life where your beliefs, behaviours, upbringing, training, identity, culture, conditioning is in contrast with the result that you want. So list out the 10 steps, find the differences, and then critically, and this is huge, do not start working on steps 6 and 7. You're not there yet. Most people skip the step in front of them, obsess about the next step, and they never get there. Look at the next step and go all in on that step. And even for that step, you're going to have to overcome some pain and reprogram the way you see yourself in order to be able to execute that step and execute it well. Number 2, you've got to increase your capacity to produce more outcomes, to handle more stress, and to live with more boredom and delayed gratification. What I mean by that third one is being able to sit down and do the work even though other things are way more fun, like playing a game, watching Netflix, eating, whatever. You have to be able to sit in the pain of the boredom and think, I am getting this done. So I'm on a massive journey where I've got big goals and I want to hit them, and it's not that I'm just trying to do what I think is right. I am studying people who've made it, and the people who've made it, guess what they have that is different to me? One, a different belief structure, which I'm working on, trying to reprogram that in. The second thing they have is they can produce more than me. If I can produce 1 YouTube video a week, they're releasing 3 a week. If I can make a YouTube video and cut between angles and maybe put some graphics in, they can make a YouTube video where it's over several different scenes. There's clips coming in, B-roll to kind of bring it to life. They're snappier, they're more fun, whatever. They can do things that I just can't do because of my capacity. Now, capacity comes down to time. What time have you got in your life? It comes down to stress, how much discomfort can you handle, and it can come down to money as well, like what can you afford? So you might say, oh Lisa, it's all right for you, you've got 2 cameras and you've made this nice backdrop. Well, I work full time and I'm filming on my iPhone. All right, the fix there might be money. You have to make more money, save it up, buy the better camera if that's what you want, make a set. But it's not just the money, it's a belief that it's worth it and it's an investment in something for the future. It's stressful to take a punt on yourself and to say, do you know what, I'm going to save for 6 months to buy a camera to be able to produce higher quality videos, or I'm going to work a year and save on the side a salary so I can outsource video editing so I can add in more B-roll or do more things, or I'm going to work really hard, make as much money as I can in my business, and I'm going to have to outsource the videos, so I need to build that into my plan. That is stressful because it's so different from what so many people do around you, what feels appropriate, what's part of your background, and therefore you've got to increase your capacity to handle that. All day, every day, you're going to be triggered by people who are doing it. And you're thinking, why aren't I doing it? Why can't I produce more videos? Why can't I up the caliber of that content? Why can't I afford help, coaching, equipment, outsourcing? What is the difference? It's the capacity. Now, my answer to how you increase capacity might surprise you. When I realised that people with bigger results had a greater capacity than me, I sat down with a pen and paper and I asked myself the question, how can I increase my capacity? This is what I came up with. Number 1, I had to get fitter. I had to get fitter. That meant 8 hours of sleep a night, so that my cognitive functioning at least worked at a level that was going to support me. There's nothing worse than trying to make a video when you're tired. When you've had enough sleep, you've eaten vegetables, you've drunk water, you feel energized and awake and rested, it is so much easier. That meant changing a habit. I used to stay up till midnight, 1 a.m. working, and then get up at 10, 11, feel tired and groggy, push through the day, never have a break, and the same cycle would repeat again. Loads of people do that. I disciplined myself to get up at 5 a.m. every single morning. I need to do that to fit in the stuff that I want to do. Otherwise I'm full with clients, full with delivery, and I don't get the time to do the stuff that will grow my brand. Make videos, think, strategize, and even have a little bit of time to myself just to ponder, the meaning of life. So I started getting up at 5 a.m. Now, this didn't mean that I just set my alarm, woke up the next day and I was like, ta-da, I'm a different person, look how productive I am. It took me a year to build that habit. Then I started adding in the gym. I wanted to feel stronger, have more energy. And guess where I learned this stuff from? I didn't download it or imagine it. I learnt it from people who were successful. Isn't it funny how people with the things that we want tend to get better sleep, eat better food, and take better care of their bodies? So I started building discipline in the gym and bringing it back into my life. If I could discipline myself to do 1 more lift, to get to the gym that day, and to drink more water while I was there, and then come back, and I didn't even worry about bedtime, I just worried about getting up at 5. The alarm would go off and I'd say, get up, 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 till I was on my feet, and the second I stood up I was like, yes! And I'd celebrate myself. And even for the first few weeks of doing it, I remember going downstairs and I didn't open my books and start producing high caliber work. I would sit and stare into space thinking, I'm so tired, this is awful, what am I? No, you're building a new habit, you can do this, watch something on YouTube, read some of your book, have a cup of tea, enjoy this transition. That was the pain. I had to sit through that for a long time before it became natural for me to wake up. When I started getting up at 5, my other half is very kind and forgiving, doesn't mind, falls back asleep, all good. But my parents, my mum, did not like the thought of me getting up at 5. That's the middle of the night, isn't it? Now she'll message me and say, how you doing? How's your day been? And it's just so normal for her and for me that I get up at 5. She knows that. She knows I'll be up at 5 a.m. because it's become a habit. I've said that's who I am, and I've been through the pain with her as well. So in order to change a habit like that and build a new habit, build that capacity, you have to help other people see you in that way and know that you can't be moved. You can't be moved off your position. The other big thing that I did and I am doing to increase capacity was something called nervous system regulation. Now, I am not an expert in this. I happen to know some people who are experts in this, so I'm thinking I might bring them on the channel, interview them and get them to educate us both on this. But I went to it by default. In order to change and heal, I started going to therapy, I was reading books on healing, I was reading books on childhood trauma, on behaviour, conditions, subconscious programming, energy, everything. I mean, I read, right? It's the first place I go. And I started coming across this idea of breathing, of breath work and how healing it can be, and also these ideas of learning to self-soothe ourselves as adults. I think quite often, when a situation's difficult, we are triggered and it's the child in us either acting out or replaying a response that is normal to us, but it doesn't serve us as adults. So 2 things I do all the time. When I'm doing something that's difficult, like saving money instead of buying rubbish, really hard for me to do, or saving money instead of just giving it away, I can feel discomfort. It feels uncomfortable and I want to alleviate the discomfort by buying the thing, eating the sugar, doing the bad habit. Because even though that is painful to me and detrimental to me longer term, subconsciously it alleviates and soothes the pain, but not in a good way. So when that happens, like I don't drink, I don't eat sugar. Quitting sugar's been the second hardest thing I've done after getting out of debt. When I want a chocolate bar, I say to myself, Lisa, you're safe and you're okay. And you might not agree with this, but I say to myself, Lisa, sugar is poison. Eating sugar is like drinking alcohol. It's not good for you. You don't like how you feel on it and it's going to set you back. And I'll say to myself, maybe not in these words, but I'll just say, Lisa, just sit with the discomfort you're feeling. You want the sugar because it will take the edge off it and make you feel okay. Same with Netflix, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever. Everyone has their vice. But what you really want to do here is grow through this. And I'll say to myself things like, you're an adult, you're safe. You're growing, you're healing. Just sit with the discomfort. Nothing's going to happen. You're safe, you're safe, you're safe. And if I pair that with looking off into the distance and breathing, I find that my nervous system just relaxes and I feel okay. And I can let the energy and the pain and the discomfort just move through me and literally evaporate or dissipate into the atmosphere. It sounds crazy, but I can feel the discomfort and I can feel it go, but only if I sit with the pain. So I'll breathe, deep breath in, I'll fill my lungs, and when they're full, just breathe in a little bit more, and then I sigh, this massive sigh out, and I breathe out. And crucially, I'm looking off into the distance when I do it. The reason for that is I learned that when we don't feel safe, often our eyes are darting around. So if we're out and about and we sense danger, we don't go, oh, look at the mountains in the distance, aren't they beautiful? We don't do that. We go, oh, what is that? What is it? What is it? What is it? And we start looking around. Our viewpoint becomes very small and limited to the space around us. Our eye movement gets faster, our breathing gets rapid, and obviously there's whole chemical processes that happen in the body to prepare us for fight, flight, freeze, fawn, whatever our typical reaction is, whatever our trained reaction is. The opposite of that is to look off into the distance, look at the mountains, the grass, the clouds, and breathe. That signals to our nervous system we're safe. Biologically and chemically, we are safe. Now I'll tell you something that will shock you. If looking off into the distance and getting a wide view and breathing deep, purposeful, meaningful breaths feels good and relaxes us and helps us feel safe to sit with a difficult emotion, imagine you've got your phone. Let's take this pair of glasses and imagine it's my phone, because my phone is locked in another room. If I could see it, I'd be on it. It's locked away. I haven't got that discipline, so I remove the distraction. If I'm looking at my phone, scrolling, where's my eye line? Where is it? It's down, it's darting, it's all around. I think the very act of looking at our phones and looking at screens signals to our nervous system, I'm not safe. So I think maybe, at the very least, we might not look at our phones and we might watch a movie out in the distance. You've got to be careful with that as well, because in our brains, if we see someone smile, the very same part of our brain that lights up when we smile, lights up when we see somebody smile. So what do you think lights up in our brains when we see violence, when we see drama, when we see pain? Watch your diet, what you eat, what you drink, what you consume, both physically and mentally. It is all having an impact on your nervous system, on your neurochemistry, and if you really want to increase your capacity, it's not about sitting and punishing yourself and pushing through, it's about building these habits in a wider context. This is huge. Are you with me? Are you with me? At this point, let me just say, I run a membership called Be the Person, and every single month I teach these topics in bite-sized forms, and I create these chapters and these worksheets that go with them to help hold you accountable to that level of work over a 30-day period. It's a tenner a month and you get access to everything when you're in there, so I'll link it below. If you want to do the work instead of just hearing about the work, go and have a look at it. You could join for a month and see if it's any good. Now, before we move on to the last one of healing, which I find the hardest, I just want to highlight that the attempts matter. I tried 4 times to get out of debt before I managed it. So I got into debt 3 times, and it was only really on my 4th attempt to start saving money and build wealth and build assets that I actually managed to begin that process. It's crazy, isn't it? What if I'd have quit after getting 100k in debt and said, oh, I can't do it, no good, I'm rubbish, got a job, and never tried again? What if after my 2nd attempt I was like, wow, very rubbish, still rubbish, and I quit again? 3rd attempt, 4th attempt. You have to be able to attempt the difficult thing, knowing and acknowledging and registering in yourself. You're trying to change who you are. You're trying to change your programming, your conditioning, and you're not just up against yourself of what is normal and appropriate for you. You're going up against the world around you, what your parents think is appropriate for you, what your colleagues think is appropriate, what your friends and the people around you. In order to change, you have to go through the discomfort of judgment. That's it. You're being judged on being different. You have to go through the pain of them being upset with you or being confused or not getting what you're going through. And I think that's really hard. So when you're attempting something, all of the memory of who you are and the environmental cues and your friendship groups will pull you back into the version you used to be. One of the easiest ways to change your life is to change who you're around, change your environment, and change the cues. Having things like vision boards on the wall, affirmations of who you're becoming, putting headphones in and listening to motivational podcasts, reading books and autobiographies of people who've made it. You need their viewpoint to become normal to you in order for it to be acceptable for you to attempt it. You attempt it, the memory pulls you back. You attempt it, you realise you haven't got the skill set, so you dive deep. You attempt it, you realise you haven't got the capacity, so you focus on building it. And every time you fail, and you will, and that's okay, you pick yourself up, you refocus on the vision, and you try again. Okay, here's the biggest thing that I learned about healing. If you've got a burn or a cut or a mark on your arm, when somebody touches it or rubs up against it, or you wear something that rubs up against it, you go, ooh, ow, that hurt, and it triggers a behavioural response, right? We pull back, our shoulders hunch up, and we feel vulnerable, we feel in pain. The biggest thing I learned about healing is that is what is happening to us emotionally. If somebody says something to us that triggers us, what's happening is they are touching a vulnerability within us, and then we are responding. Typically, the way we respond is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. We all know fight, right? You shout back, hey, don't you be saying that to me. This isn't the way the world should be. I'm angry with you. I'm angry with the government. We fight back. Flight is, see ya, not doing this again. If you're in a relationship and every time it gets serious, you feel triggered, you feel afraid, you feel vulnerable, a flight situation might be, I'm afraid of commitment, I'm gone and pulling back from that intimacy, from that relationship. Freeze I find interesting because I think I lived through freeze for a long time without realising it. Freeze almost feels like a shutdown. It's the rabbit in the headlights where you physically cannot move and you're so terrified and so paused by the trigger, the event, that you can't move through it. But freeze also feels like an inability to make decisions. Freeze also feels like procrastination. Freeze also feels like shutting off all of the good emotions to avoid all of the bad emotions. So people who struggle to feel joy sometimes do it because they block out the feelings of pain. It's a freeze response. Now, again, I'm just going to say I'm not a therapist, I'm not a specialist on this. If that registers, I'm going to link below a series of books I read that opened my mind and helped me to see the pain. And if you don't want to read the books, this is where therapy, counselling, even coaching with a good high quality coach comes in, a coach who's done the work or done the training. This is where qualifications do matter. Lived experience is good, lived experience and qualifications, outstanding. they know these models, they understand these behavioural responses, and they can help you see them and work through them. You've got to look at this and think, I've got wounds inside, areas of trauma or lived experiences that are painful for me when touched, or they trigger a trauma response in me when somebody rubs up against them. It's a very sensitive one for me to talk about this, but in order for you to really grow into the fullest expression of who you can be, it's important to look at where you feel hurt or vulnerable or delicate or unsafe or traumatized, and do the work to look at the pain, to look where it came from and desensitize it, so that the next time a trigger event happens, you don't respond in the programmed way. And the programmed way can be the way a caregiver taught you to respond, or it can be in a way that guarantees safety or guarantees a little bit of alleviation from the pain. So if I'm uncomfortable and I know that eating biscuits makes me feel better in the moment, that is a way of me avoiding the pain or comforting the pain, but that compounded leads to a result I don't want. So when someone says to me now, do you want biscuits, have a bit of cake, go on, treat yourself, you're so strict, I say, you might as well be offering me a cigarette. Like, that sugar, that biscuit to me is not a treat. I misbehave with sugar and I misbehave with biscuits, and I don't see them as a treat in the same way you do. I see them as a way of avoiding my pain. It's really crazy, but I've gotten to the point where I'd rather sit with the pain, sit with the discomfort, realign myself with my goal, and build the discipline, the strength, the capacity within myself to move beyond what life has turned me into and what I've been conditioned to become, so that I can change my behaviours, change my thoughts, change my habits, and ultimately change the result that I'm living. Now, this has been a huge video and it was a tricky one for me to make, so thank you for getting this far. If you enjoyed it, hit subscribe, I will share more, but more than the subscribe, I'd love to hear from you in the comments, or email me, my email address is below. Did it help? Did you enjoy it? What has it made you think? And just to help you go a little bit further with this, I'm going to put some recommended reading below, and I'll also link below the membership that I run, which is a community of people trying to do this work, trying to do the work, making the attempts, healing, growing, and whatever that entails. So that is it for me this week. I hope you enjoyed. Over and out.